I suppose one of the great things about running your own conference is you get to invite all your favorite people. You know, this everybody speaking today is, you know, they're people that I want to see. So really, this is a conference for me. I'm just sitting here at the front, and it's, you know, it's all for me really, and you just help with the you know, the ambiance in the background. But being able to run your own conference, I can invite some of my favorite people, as I said, and one of my favorite bloggers is Regine Debatty, who runs a blog called We Make Money, Not Art. And you know, I've been fascinated with her blog since, you know, we've set up PSFK, and we constantly point to the great things she finds on the sites, from, you know, the kind of the mesh between electronics and technology and art. And so when we decided to run this conference in London, I thought I must ask you to come up and tell us about you know, her passion and about her inspiration and all the things that she's seeing. So I would like to welcome Regine Debatty for We Make Money, Not Art.
That was a really nice introduction, so thank you. Yeah, so my name is Regine Debatty, and I write on a blog called We Make Money Not Art about the intersection between art and technology. I also write for art and design magazines, and I curate art shows. I've been talking about the way artists are using technology for 3 years now and writing about it. And when I started in 2004, I was mainly focusing on digital technologies and electronics, the kind of technologies we are engaging with every day. And I've been talking to conferences, so many of them, and suddenly I realized I wasn't getting that excited anymore about digital technologies. I mean, I've been writing about so many and talking about so many installation using mobile phones or laptop computers. So the field of art dealing with biotechnology is called bioart, and bioart is a wide field, wild as well. And I decided to focus on the body, on the way our bodies will be modified with biotechnology and the artist takes on it, and how we will relate to these new bodies that will surround us, or we will be part of them. So also I wanted to mention the fact is that manipulating and working on the body is something we are already doing in our culture and in other cultures as well. For a long time, this is tight lacing, which is still, I mean, it's to get the waist of the ladies as narrow as possible. There are still people doing this, but it's more in the fetishist world. We're doing this for aesthetical reasons, or for medical reasons. I took this picture at the Museum of Medicine in Berlin, and I was amazed to see for how long prosthetic limbs existed, but also pacemakers. Yeah, so I mean, we've modified the body for aesthetical and also for medical reason, and also there are people playing with trying to get the sixth sense, so that some people have a magnet implanted under the tip of their finger, which allow them to levitate magnets, but also to get a sixth sense, which they can feel electromagnetic waves, energy. So they can detect when there are surveillance devices operating in a room, for example. But how about biotechnology? It's something I keep reading about in the newspaper, and it still remains something very, very mysterious to me. And if I read the magazines or the newspaper, the vision I have is that we will have a fantastic life. We will be able to choose the kind of children we want and the way they will look, and maybe also the way they will think. We will be eating super bananas. They won't have skin, but they will have fantastic nutrients. So the world will be perfect, but I'm not sure this is so easy, because as many of you know, technology doesn't always live up to its promise. There are surprising things we were not expecting, and they are not always good. So what's the take on of artists on that? I just give a first example because it's one of the most famous in the field. So they are called the Victimless leather jackets, and these artists are from Australia. And they decided to grow inside the bioreactor a mini jacket. They didn't kill any animal. They just took some cells from mouse, and another from human being. They put them together. I make it very short and simple. And they just grew them inside the bioreactor in the shape of a little jacket. It's a very, very small jacket. But they showed it around, and it's not to say this is the future, you are going to wear this, but they showed it to people and say, what's your feeling about this? Would you like to wear or to buy such kind of jacket, which is still growing, which is semi-living, and there are parts of human cell inside it? Would you feel comfortable? And people are really, really disgusted. They say, no, never. They would rather wear the skin of an animal which has been killed in, we really don't know which circumstances, which might have suffered, and it's okay. They're okay with that. Of course, this jacket is kind of still semi-living. So what the artist wanted to say is, how will we relate in the future with this kind of new living or semi-living beings that are going to get out of the laboratories? What will happen? How will we relate to them? Which kind of look will we have on them? Okay, just wanted to mention that dealing with biotechnology can be expensive, but also dangerous. In the US, a few years ago, in 2004, an artist has been accused of bioterrorism. But when I say that artists are dealing with biotechnology, you might not take it very seriously because, artists are crazy people. But designers are doing it as well. There's this course at the Royal College of Art called Design Interaction, headed by Tony Dunn. And some of his students are asked to try to imagine what the future of consumers will be when we will be surrounded by these so-called emerging technologies, which are emerging for a long time. But anyway. So, biotechnology, also nanotechnology, they seem very, very remote from our everyday life. So what happens when artists or designers manage to come up with ideas of products, of potential products or services, which will suddenly make these technologies more tangible and more like as if they were already existing in our life. So a project I wanted to talk about is called Nanotopia. And the young designer imagined that in the future, we talk about, the press talks a lot about stem cells. It will cure all how do you call ill, the contrary of health? All disease, it will cure all disease. And so imagine that maybe in the future there will be a kind of national service which will provide people with the possibility to grow stem cells on their own scale, which can be quite ugly. So people would just grow stem cells on their own bodies, and they will be assisted, of course, by advisors, and regularly they will just harvest these stem cells. And why? For the satisfaction to know that some people will be cured thanks to what they have grown on their own body. They would also get paid. For example, the price would depend on the quality of the harvest, but also from the kind of stem cell which is requested at that moment. And of course, as it's quite gross and not very aesthetical, you have to be financially desperate to grow that on your own body. So we might see emerge a new kind of fashion where people who have money will kind of show off their own body, which is unspoiled, and wear as trophy part of bodies of other people who had to sell it. Talking about the body, I couldn't resist talking also about the way that maybe nanotechnology and biotechnology will kind of revolutionize the way we will deal with dead bodies. So another project from that designer is called Michael Burton. I think he's really talented. He thought that maybe, you know, in the Victorian era, people were wearing around their neck on a necklace a kind of jewel, and inside they were the hair of a person they really loved, which was living far away or who was dead. Imagine what could it become in the 21st century. So his project is called Memento, Mori in Vitro. You would take the hair of the person you love, and that person is dead, and you will just live with that this hair. So in the morning you will just have breakfast and feed the hair of the person you love, and then you will wash them because it will keep living and growing, and in the evening you will have some romantic moment where you will just caress the hair. It's just a way. I mean, I found it really repulsive, but people think it's a new kind of reinventing romanticism. I'm getting to my conclusion, which is to say that all this looks like crazy and far away and science fiction and elucubration. I don't know if it's an English word, but it's so nice in French. But just to remind you that it's not that crazy. There was a few years ago, the same group I showed with the mini jacket. They had this project called Disembodied Cuisine. They were in France. And what they did was they took a frog, a living frog. They took a cell out of the frog, and the frog was still living. It was on show at the gallery. And from the cell of the frog, they just grew small steaks. And so they were in the country of Nouvelle Cuisine. So they invited people. They went to see the butchers and told them, hey, do you want to see the future of meat? We invite you to a kind of big festin, and you will taste steak grown from frogs. So yeah, these were very, very, very small steaks. They were not delicious at all. So it looks totally crazy, but there is a race in laboratories, and NASA is working on that since 2001 to develop pork or any kind of meat from cells in Petri dishes. And it looks like we would never accept to eat it, but I'm not so sure. It's just a question of education. I remember seeing a documentary a few months ago. It was about the supermarkets in France. And in the 70s, people were introduced to the meat, the meat sold in supermarket in kind of white boxes and transparent styrofoam something. And people were like, no way, we'll never, you will have to remove that from your supermarket. We will never eat that. And that's how we buy the meat usually. I don't know how many of you go to the butcher anymore, but I think it's just a question of education. And thinking of it, I'm not even sure that this is such a bad way to envision meat. I mean, I'm a vegetarian, so that's not my problem. But if you think that yogurt is full of living cells, and the meat we get to eat, you get to eat, has some hormones or things you don't know anything about, maybe this would be better because it would have no bad fat, only some super good omega-3 fat. My conclusion is that what's happening in the labs is kind of mysterious, and when it will get out of the labs and into our life, maybe it will be too late for us to say, no, it's not the kind of thing we wanted, because at the moment biotechnology is mostly in the hands of companies who finance it, or of scientists. And I really think that, for the first time, I really think that this time scientists have much more imagination than artists. So strange things might emerge when this biotech gets out of the labs. Like, if you think about LASIK, it's a laser-assisted surgery. And it's performed on people who have problems of vision, like myopia. But athletes can also undergo such kind of procedures to get some supervision, and also people from the army. But if you are a normal being and if you are not, you have no eye problem, you will not get access to supervision. So it means that there are some kind of superhuman and not, so we are not equal, and probably we will not be equal in front of biotechnology. I'm not going to comment on this one. That's all I wanted to say. Just to say that I'm not sure we are prepared for that. That I'm quite grateful to artists and designers, because at least they can remind us that something is going on in laboratories, that it might not be as pink and lovely as the press wants us to believe. Just a question of raising our awareness on an important issue. Thank you.
I wonder if any of you have any questions for Tim or Regina.
I thought both presentations were very, very interesting, and I think what I liked about them most was that they kind of point to the fact that there's something about being human that's very positive, and that there's lots of potential. And I'm not sure, Timo, whether we are looking at the next decade in terms of optimism, because I think the key trends are war on terror, the environment, the world's going to end, we've got to stop consuming this, that, and the other. But I think where your insight is true is that there's something about humans that is positive, and it is generally an aspiration. And I actually think where, not just brands, but where we can communicate, is that people will question the cultural risk, the culture of fear, that generally is permeating throughout the world. And I think within that, there is something that always is there. So at the beginning of the film that we watched earlier, the guy was talking about brands being about hope. So I think we do have a role to play in the sense that we can connect with people who actually do have some sense of hope. And I think actually when you connect with that, then you connect with something that is generally progressive, that generally is going to change, is generally going to be part of that attitudinal shift, which I think is coming about because I think we live in a more questioning time than we ever did before. And so I'd kind of say, well, although I don't agree that that we're going to see this optimism explode in 2010, I think there is enough opportunity in terms of the way people communicate and the way they understand things today to really make a difference. And I think it's a really good thing to be part of.
Thank you. Yeah. But when I was talking about optimism, and we did see it after we have lived in a very trying decade, and there's a lot of books written on the fear society and the fear decade. But at the end of each decade, so we will be coming to 2009, we always have, as people, as living in a calendar kind of years, we always look back at what has happened. And so you always have that 1999 coming, and you always have that optimism. And if you look back at this decade, it has been a very influential decade, and there has been a growing optimism. And we've talked about, and I think a lot of the issues come out in the media about an optimistic view. And the way I see it, and the way we see it, is that there will be a shift in this way people will act on it. And so there will be. It was interesting. It was just working on 2010 and thinking when the World Trade Center terrorist attack happened, there were children at the age of 12. And that's before they're forming their identity, before they have a frame of reference. They're understanding what's happening around the world, or around the world around them. Then we got into the what we call bubble-wrapped kids, protected. All these children protected. Well, now these children, that's 8 years ago, so they're 20. At 20, we come with a new attitude. All the protests, all the kind of the action that happens is usually at that kind of formative years. And so we'll see them kind of looking at, this whole new millennials that we've been talking about. So in that way, optimistic. What will happen? Yes, we'll see different changes. At the time, we're living in a period of history when there's less war ever. In the history of mankind, so it's we're going to that direction. A lot of kind of activity in that. So Yeah.
Hi, my question is for teammate. You touched on BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China as being kind of emerging markets. Obviously you've traveled to these areas, and you're talking about their influence in terms of expression within society. Is it going to be homegrown, or are they going to be influenced by the West? Obviously your job is to kind of know the future. You've traveled to these areas. What's your gut feeling on that? I mean, is it going to be from the West, their influences, or are they going to have homegrown expression in terms of culture?
No, that's very interesting. It's a very interesting point, because right now, and then when we looked at when the whole China opened up and the markets opened up, so looking at the political and the economical side, is that, and also the political side where you had the internet, kind of that space to kind of explore. Bringing that back into these countries that are developing their whole kind of political, economic infrastructure differently, where they're bringing influences in, they have the power to then start building kind of homegrown brands, homegrown products, homegrown kind of a whole new way. We also look at leapfrogging, which is interesting from our perspective. Leapfrogging talks about a lot of people in the BRIC countries, and even in developed countries such as you have a whole section of the United States that is not that tech savvy, kind of the central or remote areas, where the first contact that they'll have is with the internet will be on a mobile device, whatever mobile device that is. And so they're going to see this whole domain of social communication in a different way, creating new behaviors. So it will have a very strong influence in the next years. Another key area is which I find fascinating, is the China internet. There's a China internet where it's based on Chinese characters, where there is no translation tool that you can take from an English term and go to a site in Chinese. But the Chinese, Mandarin Chinese is now being studied. It's went up in, I think, a year from 20 people studying it, young people in the States, to 1,000 in small communities. Because there are these new internets, and we have to think of how this is going to influence communications, how it's going to influence social connectivity, how it's going to influence all of these, and how are these going to develop in the next few years and combine.
Just following on from that, do you think we're at the point now or in the near future when BRIC countries will actually be influencing Western culture? We've seen Chinese car manufacturers moving into the UK and Europe. Is that going to happen now, soon, or do you think that's quite a long way off yet?
Do I think it's quite a long way off? I think there will be a development. I think we'll start seeing changes, and there has been changes. Looking back just 8 years ago, we've always kind of looked at, we called it third cultures, and it's cultures developed on kind of this east-west kind of transfer of knowledge, transfer of design, transfer of information, and then we see the East coming to the West and brands. I do see that there will be a slow, and actually not, it's very rapid what's happening now, especially with China and India, very fascinating, where they're building, especially India building a whole new kind of culture and generation built on this knowledge-based society, and their influence on the West will be a very strong one, both in behaviors, both in brands, and both in taking inspiration from the West, kind of, and then homegrown kind of influences. So when we're looking at kind of embracing the BRIC countries or any areas, it's really to understand what's happening in the local cultures compared to the global ones, where you can combine then directions that might be rapid, and of course each area develops at a different speed.
It was interesting to hear you talk about some of the technology, blogging, Web 2.0, and those kind of things. Wondered how you feel about virtual worlds and the impact that might have. How interesting a technology platform is that? What do you think? What do you both think?
Virtual worlds. Fascinating. I think I was just in New York. It was actually a year ago with an agency, and it was talking about this whole second life and kind of virtual worlds going into the physical. I think this is a key area that we can see where we've been living for the past few years in this virtual world, or having virtual identities, whether it's your email account or whether it's an avatar or whether it's a a whole space you've created on some sort of Second Life or Hubble Hotel or these different worlds. And then what we've done is we've taken the physical and brought it into the virtual. Now we're starting to see a shift from this virtual coming back into the physical. There was an exhibition by the New York School of Technology where they created things in the digital and brought them into the physical and not mimicking the other way around. So there will be a big impact, and we're also looking at kind of third life. So what is the third life? How do we combine that? We're going into the whole area of Nokia's mobile internet, and how will that influence? We look at geotagging. You can take your virtual world, you can have it instantaneously at your wherever, whenever you want. And so that combination of having, say, a virtual life and a physical life, it's just become reality. It's an interesting, very fantastic presentation. It's also what I've been looking at, the bio and nano technologies, and kind of looking at how that will influence kind of our physical world being influenced, what is possible in the virtual, because from a behavioral or an attitudinal perspective, people are coming more and more comfortable with technology. It's becoming invisible. People are coming more and more comfortable with science and technology. So we're understanding that it's not this thing that's going to harm people, and we're embracing it through art, through design, through technical innovations, and I think that is what we'll see happening, kind of that embracing of the two worlds.
I think you're much more positive than I am, really. I'm not going to talk about Second Life and to comment on that, because I really try to get interested in Second Life and I can't. There's just two things I wanted to say about the way, like as you said, of going from the digital world back into the real world. One in design is rapid prototyping, where you can invent whatever thing on a screen and turn it into a 3D tangible product. And the other is that I said you are much more positive, and I'm kind of more influenced by Bruce Sterling's vision of SPIME, and it's a vision where he imagines that this online world is getting crazy. I mean, the way it's embedded in objects that surround us. And I start seeing example of it, like when he first gave that talk 2 years ago, it was like, yeah, he's a science fiction writer, okay. But now I can see that, of course, it's not exactly online, but people getting into rivers instead of the road because they are just blindly following their GPS assistant of navigation and just follow it and arrive where they shouldn't arrive. And